Hello, and welcome to The Bomb Squad. I'm your host, writer director Andrew Hada. My films right now, The Last Ones and Borderland, are on sale. So go to any store that only accepts masks and get it from there. I'm here with my co host, Joshua Eck, and we're continuing our summer of guests, which at this point is probably our winter of guests. Uh, and we've brought on Enola Lugosi.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm good.
It's always that weird podcast, like we've already talked about this, but let's do it for the audience. um
Oh, yeah.
so today we're continuing our fall of guests, and as you know, on the Bomb Squad we always appreciate the underappreciated. So Enola brought us the Silver Bullet. It's just Silver Bullet, the 1985 film, written by Stephen King and directed by Daniel Addis, and it stars Gary Busey. It has Corey Haim, a very young Corey Haim. It has Terry O'Quinn, who is always cool when he shows up. It has Megan Follows. And so, Josh, tell us what this movie is about.
A werewolf menaces a small town, and only a handicapped boy can stop him.
Yeah, that's that's pretty good. Um, so, Enola, why did you pick this film?
So I picked this film because it's actually one of my favorite films. It's the first horror film that I remember watching ever, and it's what got me into creature features and horror movies as a kid. I probably watched it when I was between the ages of 5 to 7. So
Yeah, it is weird because I have heard of it, but I hadn't seen it until you recommended it. And I was kind of thrown off because it has
I was gonna say you're welcome.
nice. Well, and I was thrown off because it has like a 45% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I don't know why so many critics didn't like it. I thought it was pretty enjoyable.
I have to agree.
It does kind of feel like, oh, if you wanted Stephen King to write a werewolf movie, this is what it would feel like. Like it's in a small town. There's like the preacher and stuff, but I mean, yeah, that's what Stephen King's known for. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it was. I was surprised that it had such low scores too, because I was like, yeah, this is good. I mean, this is a very quality through line in this movie, and it's got those little touches that I like.
Yeah, I guess looking back, I looked at Roger Ebert's review again, and even though he had a lot to say and he called it a comedy, which I don't, there's comedic moments because of Busey, but it's not really a comedy.
Yeah.
He did end up saying he overall liked or enjoyed the film despite all of his gripes.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny. I read that review too, and he was like, "Oh, this is a great satire of Stephen King's work." And it's like, I don't think it was supposed to be that.
Yeah, I think
It
you're
was
misreading this
him in
whole
his
film.
element. Yeah.
It's
And plus, it's based on a novella that reads more like a calendar with just um a kind of a chronicle of the different werewolf attacks around town.
oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a pretty cool way to do it. I like that idea of like that's why novellas are always cool because you can like write things
Yeah.
in different ways.
I think it's the shortest novel technically he's ever written, and it's based on Cycle of the Werewolf.
Okay, yeah, and he actually not only did, because a lot of times people will say like, "Oh, this is by Stephen King," but they just mean he wrote the book. But no, he also wrote the screenplay.
Yeah, he wrote the screenplay for this.
Yeah,
He was very involved.
yeah. So, and I feel like it retains that King feel to it, as opposed to like some of the other movies where they have the King like framing, but they don't have like his voice as much. So I think that was like another plus in its category. Also, so Corey Haim, he plays a disabled kid. He can't feel, or he can't use his legs, and his name is Marty, and he gets like the coolest thing I've ever seen, where they like Gary Busey's his uncle, his uncle Red, and he gives him like this dirt bike that he can kind of attach to, And it's like that thing was so cool. I was like, this looks better than any dirt bike I've ever seen.
Right. He literally like makes him a motorized wheelchair
Yeah.
that has automotive parts on it and makes it like really, really
Yeah,
fast.
and you could like drive
Like
it.
it can go the speed of a car, but you probably need to be really
Yeah.
careful, especially in that bumpy country road.
Seriously, it is funny because like yeah, because Corey Haim will ride it like over like to the edge of the schoolyard on the grass, and I was like, oh my god, that would be the most uncomfortable ride.
I know you would be like just jostled around.
Yeah.
I did like it though, well, because the his wheelchair you see at the beginning is just called the Silver Bullet on the back,
Right.
and then when he makes him the dirt bike wheelchair equivalent, it's also the Silver Bullet. So it's like the Silver Bullet Mark II or something like that. You know,
And also, this movie's about werewolves.
well,
I don't
unrelated.
know if you got that connection.
I don't think that was. I don't think Stephen King made that connection when he was writing it. Two unrelated elements. Yeah.
Also, I just realized that it's funny because he names his wheelchair and his dirt bike Silver Bullet, and in it, Stephen King also names the bike Silver, but after the Lone Ranger horse. But it is kind of funny that twice, or twice he's used silver as a naming convention for like a writing.
Yeah.
But oh, let me just explain kind of more, a little bit more about the plot. So it stars Megan Follows is Jane, and Corey Haim is Marty, and they're brother and sister, and they're kind of like they're in this small town. They're kind of at that age where they're not super close. Like they kind of not resent each other, but it's like that when you're kind of growing up and you're kind of trying to distance yourself from your siblings and trying to kind of make your own way, so to speak. So they're not super close, and it's a
This
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say this is a very common brother sister dynamic. I'm an older sister. Um and I have my younger brother that we grew up together. So like I resonated with this situation a lot. So it's just like how annoying your younger sibling can be to you, and they're always doing something to irritate you because they know that it gets under your skin and then that makes them laugh and they do it more. So that's very much the Marty Jane situation.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely that part where you're kind of like it's more like you guys are picking at each other more than anything else. But yeah, so they've come to this, or they're in this small town, and they're like, and then someone starts killing people, but they're not sure. Like the first guy who gets killed, it's kind of like a little bit of a drunkard, and he like his head gets chopped off in a really cool way, and it lands on the
Yeah.
train track. So people just think that it was an accident. They don't think it's like anything. And also, unlike a lot of other werewolf movies, it kind of seems like the werewolf is aware, at least enough to kind of cover up his crimes. So that
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's not found
he's
out right away.
He's fully aware
well,
in wolf
Yeah.
form.
Which
yeah, and you know too, you notice that he's not eating people like you would
No.
think, like, oh, a beast who would just he's just eating people because he's crazy. It's like no, he's deliberately killing them and just leaving. So it's like there's something like more to it than just like
just like
random
random.
animal killings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sinister, not survival.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love that scene too because of the drunkard as he's like singing a song, he's stumbling all over the tracks, and he looks down and he like sees this giant footprint, and he kind of, I think he actually says, oh shit," or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, and then there's just growling and stuff. So it's almost meta.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. And you know what? Because I didn't know too much about this movie, and then like when I saw like the plot synopsis when I rented it, and it was like a brother and sister, and it was just like the basic plot. But so I kind of thought that this was a more gonna be like a more PG-13 kind of horror film. So when they cut off that guy's head, I was like, oh, okay, now this is a full R. We're going
yeah.
full R on this, which was it was quite a shock how much they went in that very first scene, which was super awesome. I also so like yeah, so eventually Marty, who's Corey Haim, he's like trying to figure it out, and so like they kind of go through it, and in one of like the best scenes, because they kill his best friend, and then they're like let's do mob justice, and the cop is like no, don't do it. The sheriff, played by Terry O'Quinn, is like hey no, don't do this, and he like the mob's like no, we're gonna do it, and then the dad, played by Kent Broadhurst, who does like a really good job every time he does a really good job of being someone who's like legit traumatized and like
Yeah.
pushed to the
His
edge. Yeah.
grief is very apparent. I just love his whole monologue about private justice.
Yeah, yeah, he does a real good job, and he doesn't have that many scenes, but he's so memorable in all of them.
Yeah, I feel like he's only in the discovery scene of the body, the bar
And
scene,
then the
and the
church
dream
scene.
sequence,
Yeah, yeah,
the nightmare.
Maybe he
right.
carries weight, and yeah, and then the later church nightmare scene. Yeah, it's good. No, he does a good job. He kind of feels like he's like moments from falling apart. I don't know. He just has that face
Yeah,
where he's like always on the verge of a breakdown, which would make sense because his son just got horrifically mauled. So
right.
There's blood all over that kite.
Yeah.
yeah,
And so yeah, so like the after that the sheriff is like, "All right, go do it." And like they're like hunting him in the kind of backwoods, and it's all foggy, and that scene was so cool cuz like you don't really see too much, like they withhold the reveal of the werewolf, but you do know that it's something supernatural. Um and so like they're just kind of walking, and like people are getting sucked into the fog, or you just see like a hand come out. Oh man, that was such a good sequence.
Yes, I love that scene.
Yeah, I think that's when like I started to be like, oh man, that's when I really like started to kind of not pay attention, but that's when I was like, this movie's super cool.
There's also this whole thing in that scene just with the brutality of it because like the one person brings the baseball bat and then the baseball bat is used to beat that same person to death.
Right,
And
right.
it's just like
yeah.
there's a whole like flipping this uh,
I
I
gonna
don't
say
know what did you say before about the mob mentality, like kind of flipping it on its head and being
Yeah.
like you need to be scared of the um you're not more stronger than the monsters or something like this. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's good because eventually when you find out what it is, that whole idea of like vigilante justice comes into play more than you think in that very first scene.
right. Yeah, it's you don't know till later that it's that they're that it's been happening the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, things happen in the movie. I was gonna say that that bartender who does get beat to death with his own baseball bat, labeled Peacemaker, is that's Lawrence Tierney from Reservoir Dogs. And I was like, oh,
I recognize him, and then for some reason every time I watch this, I'm like, where do I know this person from?
I always think of him because he was apparently him and Tarantino like were in
Hated
screaming
each other?
matches on
Yeah.
Oh
set. Yeah,
wow.
so it's like the hardest just like dispute he ever had or something like that. So apparently
Well,
difficult to work with. Great actor, does a great bartender who dies with his own bat. So
he does a real good job of dying.
I think in that private justice scene is when there's like a reference to Harmony Hill, which is this cemetery that's in the like Stephen King universe, I guess.
Oh
mm,
So
yeah.
it actually links this film and Salem's Lot together,
Oh, okay.
which is interesting that his vampire creatures and werewolf creatures are linked within the same universe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
it's
My favorite is always when they reference Pennywise, because it's always like, oh, and also,
mhm.
also
like
there's a
by the way.
cosmic beast. It's unrelated to anything else.
See, I like the subtle King references. I don't like it when they're like, "You're a writer, but you don't have good endings," like in It
Like in
Chapter
it too.
2, and
I
they say it like 8 times. You're like, "I get it."
I liked it the first time. I was like, that's clever, and then they kept doing it, and I was like, okay. It kind of feels
Pull
like
it back.
King is like working through the idea that people don't like his ending, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but no, it was good at this. It was very down to earth for Stephen King.
Yeah, and like for this movie, speaking of the bartender, even like the casting is so spot on. Like Gary Busey as the kind of like Uncle Buckish type, like he's not necessarily like
Mhm.
a doofus, but he kind of has that like laid back
He's
mentality.
kooky.
Yeah, he's kooky. He's like he's building the car for him, or the little cart. Like I really liked. You forget that because Gary Busey, I always think of him when he was older and kind of like going off, or also in Lethal Weapon where he's like the psycho killer. So I always forget that like there was a after that he kind of became like, oh yeah, he's like an everyday kind of uncle.
But I liked about it too is the first scene you see him in, his costume. It's a faded Hawaiian shirt, but the sleeves are ripped off, as if like a Hawaiian shirt wasn't casual enough for him. He had to go like one step more, and I was like, all right, I appreciate this kind of.
Yeah, it's a perfect like example of his character.
Yeah.
Or even later, like at the end, he wants to make a silver bullet to hunt the werewolf, and he like goes to the gun guy, the gun owner, and he's like he makes up this elaborate story about
I love that montage.
yeah, like about how his grandson loves the Lone Ranger and he wants them to make it so and like the guy's like, okay. It was just like there was no reason he could have just been like, hey, make this. But in his very Uncle Red way, he like made up this elaborate side story just to get a silver bullet, which I really
Yeah, and even
enjoyed.
the guts is like, or you're hunting werewolves. Like he doesn't care, and he knows. It's like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
It's like I don't care.
yeah. I love there's this sequence in the middle because like halfway through the movie, people have died and no one knows what to do, and then Corey Haim, Marty is really sad that they're canceling the town fair, but it's like, yeah, of course they are. People are dying. But
Right.
so he gets his motorbike and he gets some fireworks and he's shooting them off on the bridge. Werewolf sees comes, he hits it in the eye, and then his sister goes around town like pretending to collect cans and looking to see if anyone has like an eye injury. And for some reason that scene is super low key. Like it's just a lot of people staring at her and it's so like perfectly creepy.
Yeah.
And it has such a good score where it's just like, oh, it's very like slowed down and kind of like, yeah, this would be weird, just staring at people.
Yeah,
It's
and
good.
you know that girl Megan Follows. I've never seen her, or maybe I have, but she didn't look familiar to me.
So Megan Follows. Sorry,
Megan.
she's very particular
No.
about the fact that it's Megan. Um, so Megan Follows is a Canadian actress who starred in the L.M. Montgomery adaptations of her book series Anne of Green Gables,
Oh.
Oh, yeah, but
which were she's Canadian, the author's Canadian, the whole cast was Canadian. It was shot in Canada, Nova Scotia specifically. I was a big fan of those books as a kid, so
oh, nice. Yeah.
that's how I knew Megan Follows because
Yeah.
I had seen the adaptations. And then I think more recently she was in the CW series Reign about Mary Queen of Scots.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw that. And she was also in Wyona Earp, which was it was like
There's no
a
way you said that
sci-fi.
right either.
Oh,
There's not.
I don't say anything. She was also in I Am Number 4. My favorite sci-fi teen film that set up 4 sequels that never got made.
Yeah, young adult novelization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she does a great job. Like I was constantly impressed because Corey Haim. I knew he was going to do a good job because I've seen Corey Haim in other things. But I had never seen her before, and she did a really good job. I really liked her character and the way she played it.
And I'm pretty sure that they didn't shoot this in Canada, but there was a lot of Canadian actors in this film.
Yeah,
So I think that's how she ended up in it because Corey Haim is Canadian too, I think.
yeah, I think so. There's a
He
lot of
brought his whole squad over. Well, I don't know. Was it shot? I know it was shot in North Carolina, but
Yeah.
but there was like a long period where they were just getting a lot of actors from Canada, like kid actors especially. I think because of I don't know why, to be honest, but that's not.
Just something more innocent and lovable about
a lot of
these
Disney
Canadian
Channel
kids.
movies too. Like
Yeah.
they're all in Canada, and I don't know if it's just like a like cost thing.
I think it is.
Like
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think overall this is a good one. But yeah, so yeah, guys, Silver Bullet. Also, this is the end of our uh winter of guests or year of guests,
Autumn
whatever,
of Guests.
autumn,
I don't know.
whenever it airs. This will be
Whatever time of year it is.
But yeah, so it was a great film to end on because it was like again, it fit perfectly. It has a low Rotten Tomatoes score. Roger Ebert was talking about who knows what in his review, but it was worth a watch, and I was pleasantly surprised. So thank you for showing us this film.
Yeah.
Do you want to? I know you have the podcast and other stuff. Do you want to plug anything?
Oh, do I want to plug anything? Yeah, sure. I guess there's a couple things that probably will be out by the time everybody hears this episode. So, so my name is Enola Leon King, and I am part of a anthology that's going to be coming out in October. So it might be out by the time you hear this. It's called Hear Us Scream, and it is an anthology of essays from non-binary and female horror lovers, and it has some great personal essays and stories in there about how horror has affected us as people, and then also, of course, the podcast. So if you want to listen to me rant about horror films and interview authors and podcasters and filmmakers on my podcast, you can check out Slay Away, and it's available on anywhere you want to consume a podcast. So
Cool. And maybe you'll find me on there if you look hard enough.
yeah, eventually when that episode comes out.
Yeah. Hopefully we're doing a race to see which one of our episodes comes out.
It's pretty
Well,
cool though.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is super awesome.
I'm very excited. Yeah, it's my first piece in a published book. And then I have like the other bylines on websites and
Right.
stuff, but it's cool.
And obviously, I don't want you to say everything, but can you give our listeners a little taste of what you write about, just so that they can have an idea?
Yeah, so my story, it's a very personal essay about how horror saved my life.
Awesome. That's very
Interesting,
Yeah. So check that out. The links will be below right now, so go check them out. And as always, like and subscribe. And Nola, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good time. I love talking about werewolves, Stephen King, and this particular horror film.
This movie seems almost like it was made specifically for you. Which...
A little horror film that could.
Yeah. Well, I love Corey Haim and wheelchairs, so this was made for me for a different reason.
This film came out the year I was born, so I saw it probably 5 years later. I probably didn't see it till 1990, 1992.
Right. That's crazy because this film came out on Josh's birthday.
Yeah,
was it your actual birthday, Josh, or just the same day?
October 11th?
The day I was born, yeah. Very strange.
Wait, October 11th, 1985?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
what?
That's crazy. That's crazy that everyone's birthday.
Well, just because I had to double check when it came out because I was just reading that article and it's like the 35th anniversary, and that means that you would have turned probably 35 on the 35th anniversary or 36.
Yeah, had I known about it, a year ago, I could have been there at the official event they had for it. I don't know.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncanny.
So crazy. Yeah, but cool. Yeah, everyone's connected except for me, I guess. I'm the outliner. Well, thank you for joining us. Again, guys, links at the bottom. Check it out. And thank you guys for joining us on the Bomb Squad. We'll see you next time.